I was standing in my bedroom, holding the empty velvet box, when I heard my son Daniel's car pull into the driveway. The box that had held my grandmother's diamond necklace for 128 years. The box that should have been locked in my safe. The box that was now as empty as my heart felt in that moment. My name is Margaret Hayes. I'm 72 years old. And I had just discovered that the most precious thing my late husband Henry left me had been stolen. But what made my blood run cold wasn't just the theft. It was knowing exactly who had taken it. The box was still warm. Someone had been in my house recently, in my bedroom, in my safe. I had given Daniel and his fiancée Amanda the code 6 months ago when Henry died, thinking they might need access in an emergency. My hands trembled as I set the empty box on the dresser next to Henry's photograph. He was looking at me with that gentle smile he always had, the same smile he wore when he gave me that necklace on our 25th wedding anniversary, the same necklace his grandfather had given his grandmother in 1892. The necklace wasn't just jewelry. It was a piece of family history. 47 diamonds set in platinum with 3 sapphires representing faith, hope, and love. Inside the clasp an engraving read, "To Margaret, my eternal love, Henry 1892. He had it re-engraved when he gave it to me, keeping the original date to honor the legacy. Every Hayes woman for 5 generations had worn that necklace on her wedding day. I wore it. Henry's mother wore it. His grandmother wore it. And I had planned to present it to Daniel's bride on their wedding day, whoever she would be. But someone couldn't wait. I sat on the edge of my bed and took a deep breath. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of who would do this. Daniel would never steal from me. He had grown up hearing stories about that necklace, about the history it represented. He knew how much it meant to our family. But Amanda. I had only known Amanda for 8 months. She had appeared in Daniel's life suddenly last spring, a whirlwind romance that swept my careful, methodical son off his feet. She was 28, blonde, beautiful, and always wearing designer clothes that seemed far too expensive for someone who claimed to work as a freelance social media consultant. From the first time I met her, something felt off. The way she cataloged every item in my house with her eyes. The way she asked too many questions about Henry's estate, about what he had left me, about family heirlooms. The way she would pick up photographs and ask, "Is this real silver?" Or touch the curtains and say, "Are these custom-made?" I had dismissed it as nerves, as a young woman trying to get to know her future mother-in-law. Now I understood. She had been taking inventory, planning, calculating. I called Daniel's phone. He answered on the 3rd ring, sounding distracted. "Hey, Mom. What's up?" "I'm at work." "Daniel, I need to ask you something important. When was the last time you were at the house?" There was a pause. Probably 3 days ago when Amanda and I dropped off those wedding invitations for you to look at." "Why? And Amanda was with you the whole time?" Another pause, longer this time. "Well, I had to run back to the car to grab my phone. She was inside for maybe 5 minutes alone." "Mom, what's going on?" "You're scaring me." 5 minutes. That's all it would take for someone who knew where to look and had the safe code. My voice was steady when I replied, though my heart was hammering. "Nothing, sweetheart. I just couldn't remember if I gave you those old photo albums you wanted. We'll talk later." I hung up before he could ask more questions. I needed time to think, to plan. I could call Daniel back right now and tell him what happened. I could confront Amanda. I could call the police. The necklace was insured for $180,000, though its sentimental value was beyond price. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the lawyer in me from my 40 years practicing family law before retirement. Maybe it was the mother in me who didn't want to destroy my son's happiness without being absolutely certain. Or maybe it was something else entirely. A cold, calculated desire to see justice served in a way that would expose the truth to everyone, not just to me and Daniel in private. I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. If Amanda had stolen the necklace, she would either try to sell it immediately or she would be foolish enough to wear it. Someone that bold, that confident in her deception, wouldn't be able to resist showing off such a prize. I started with her social media. Amanda posted constantly on Instagram, documenting every meal, every outfit, every moment of her life. I scrolled through weeks of posts. Designer handbags. Expensive brunches. Photos from a weekend in Napa that Daniel later told me he paid for, though she never mentioned that in her captions. And then I found it. A post from yesterday, just 24 hours after the necklace disappeared. A close-up photo of Amanda's neck and collarbone. She was wearing an ornate diamond necklace with sapphire accents. My necklace. The caption read, "Fell in love with this vintage piece at an amazing antique shop in the city. Sometimes you just have to treat yourself. Gemstone sparkles #vintage jewelry #treat yourself #blessed." The comments below were full of heart emojis and friends asking where they could find similar pieces. One comment from her sister Brittany read, "OMG, that's gorgeous. That must have cost a fortune." Amanda's reply, "Actually got an amazing deal. The shop owner didn't know what she had." Winking face, I stared at the screen, my hands clenched so tight my knuckles went white. She wasn't just a thief. She was brazen enough to publicly wear stolen property and lie about where she got it. She had stolen a priceless family heirloom and was flaunting it on social media like a trophy. My phone rang. It was my sister Linda calling from Phoenix. "Maggie, I just saw Amanda's Instagram post. Is that your necklace? The one Henry gave you?" Linda had been at our anniversary party when Henry presented me with the necklace. She knew every detail of it. "Yes," I said quietly. "Oh my God. Did you give it to her? For the wedding?" "No, Linda. I didn't give it to her." The line went silent as my sister processed what that meant. "That little bitch stole from you. Maggie, you need to call the police right now. You need to tell Daniel." "I know what I need to do," I replied. "But I'm going to handle this my way." "Your way?" "Maggie, this isn't a negotiation in a divorce settlement. This is theft. This is your family's legacy." "Exactly. It's my family's legacy. And I'm going to protect it. Trust me, Linda. I have a plan." After I hung up, I sat in my study and did what I had done for 4 decades as a family law attorney. I gathered evidence. I took screenshots of Amanda's Instagram post. I documented the timestamp. I checked her other social media platforms and found she had posted the same photo on Facebook with a slightly different caption. Vintage dreams do come true. Ring, I called my insurance company and reported the theft, providing them with the Instagram evidence. The agent, a woman named Patricia who had handled Henry's estate, was shocked. "Mrs. Hayes, with this evidence, we can have her arrested. This is insurance fraud in addition to theft." "Not yet," I said. "I need you to document everything, but don't take action until I give you the word." "Can you do that?" Patricia hesitated. "Technically, yes. But I don't understand why you'd want to wait. Because I want everyone to see who she really is. Not just the police, not just the insurance company. Everyone. Every single person who thinks she's this sweet, innocent girl marrying into our family. I want them all to see the truth." I spent the next 2 weeks playing the perfect future mother-in-law. I attended dress fittings with Amanda, smiling while she showed off her $8,000 wedding gown that Daniel's architect's salary had paid for. I helped finalize seating charts, nodding as Amanda seated her family in all the prominent positions while relegating my lifelong friends to the back. I approved flower arrangements that cost more than my first car. And every single time I saw her, she was wearing my necklace. At the final dress fitting, Amanda's mother Barbara gushed over it. "Amanda, that necklace is absolutely stunning. Is that something Daniel gave you?" Amanda smiled sweetly, her hand going to the necklace in a possessive gesture that made my blood boil. "Oh no, I found it at this amazing little antique shop downtown. The owner said it was from the 1890s. Can you believe I got it for only $500? She had no idea about vintage jewelry values. I practically stole it. The irony of her words hit me like a physical blow. She practically stole it. "No, Amanda. You actually stole it." I sipped my champagne and said nothing, though I wanted to scream. "Only $500. She was claiming she bought a $180,000 heirloom for $500 at an antique shop. The lie was so absurd it would be funny if it wasn't so cruel. That evening, I went deeper into my investigation. I hired a private investigator named Marcus Thompson, a former police detective who specialized in background checks. "Mrs. Hayes," he said when he came to my house 2 days later with a thick folder. "You need to see this. Amanda Warren is not who she says she is." He spread documents across my dining room table. "Her real name is Amanda Jean Kowalski. She's from Cleveland, not Portland like she told your son. She's been married twice before, both times to wealthy older men. The first marriage lasted 6 months before her husband discovered she had taken out credit cards in his name and maxed them out. The second marriage lasted 8 months before he caught her trying to forge his signature on a deed to transfer his property to her name. I felt sick. Does Daniel know any of this? I doubt it. She's very good at what she does. New city, new identity, new target. She researches vulnerable families, recent widowers with sons, men in their 30s who are successful but lonely. She finds them on LinkedIn, learns their routines, arranges accidental meetings. He pulled out another document. Your son met her at a coffee shop near his office, right? On a Tuesday morning in March. Yes. He said it was fate. She spilled coffee on his laptop and offered to pay for the damage. Marcus smiled grimly. She's used that exact move 3 times before. It's not fate, Mrs. Hayes. It's strategy. I stared at the documents, feeling a rage so deep it scared me. This woman had targeted my grieving son. She had researched our family, planned her approach, manipulated Daniel during the most vulnerable time of his life. And now she had stolen from me, lied about it, and was counting down the days until she became a Hayes and gained access to everything Henry had worked so hard to build. Marcus, I said quietly, I need you to be at the wedding. I need you to document everything. Can you do that? Mrs. Hayes, with all due respect, why wait? We have enough evidence right now to have her arrested and to warn your son about who he's marrying. Because, I said, looking at the photograph of Amanda wearing my necklace, I want the whole world to see who she really is. I want every guest at that wedding, every member of her family, every friend who thinks she's wonderful, to witness the truth. She's been playing a role, Marcus. It's time for the curtain to fall. Daniel pulled me aside at the rehearsal dinner. Mom, you've been quiet lately. Are you okay? I know the wedding planning has been stressful, and I know you're still grieving Dad. I looked at my son, my sweet boy who had grown into such a good man. Henry would have been so proud of him. He had his father's kind eyes, his father's gentle nature. He deserved so much better than Amanda. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a little tired. Weddings are exhausting at my age. He hugged me tight. I'm so glad you and Amanda get along. She was worried you wouldn't accept her. She keeps telling me how lucky she is to have you as a mother-in-law. She said you're the classiest woman she's ever met, and that she hopes to be just like you someday. The classiest woman. Hopes to be just like me. The manipulation was so skilled, so calculated. She had positioned herself as the grateful daughter-in-law, the woman who admired me, all while stealing from me and lying to my son. That night, I finalized my plan. I called Patricia at the insurance company. I need you to have someone at the wedding tomorrow. A representative who can verify the necklace and document everything. Can you arrange that? Absolutely. We'll send our jewelry appraiser, Marcus Chun. He's testified in court dozens of times. No one can dispute his authentication. And Mrs. Hayes? I want you to know that what you're doing takes incredible courage. Most people would just call the police and be done with it. You're making sure there's no room for doubt, no way for her to talk her way out of this. Next, I called my lawyer, James Morrison, who had been my colleague for 30 years before we both retired. James, I need a witness tomorrow. Someone who can document everything that happens. Legal documentation that will hold up in court. Are you free? For you, Maggie? Always. What's going on? I told him everything. The theft, the Instagram posts, Marcus Thompson's investigation revealing Amanda's true identity, her history of targeting wealthy men, her pattern of fraud and manipulation. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. Maggie, this is brilliant. Cruel, perhaps, but brilliant. She'll never recover from this kind of public exposure. And more importantly, Daniel will see exactly who she is. No private conversation, no he said, she said. Just pure, undeniable truth in front of 200 witnesses. She stole from me, James. She stole from my family. She targeted my son during the worst period of his life. She deserves exactly what's coming to her. The wedding day was perfect. Clear blue skies, temperature in the mid-70s, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of roses. The venue was a historic mansion with manicured gardens and a ballroom that could hold 200 guests. I had helped pay for it. Another $15,000 contribution that Amanda had accepted with a smile and a thank you card that now felt like mockery. I arrived early, wearing a deep purple dress that Henry had always loved and my mother's pearl earrings. I was not wearing the diamond necklace, of course, because Amanda had stolen it. But I was wearing something else. A small recording device hidden in my bracelet, and a camera disguised as a brooch on my dress. Everything would be documented. I watched the guests arrive. Daniel's friends from college, still young and optimistic about love. Amanda's large family from Portland, who were actually from Cleveland and had no idea their daughter was a serial con artist. Colleagues from Daniel's architecture firm who thought they were witnessing a fairy tale romance. My sister Linda flew in from Phoenix and squeezed my hand when she saw me. "Are you sure about this, Maggie? Once you do this, there's no going back. Daniel's heart is going to break in front of everyone. His heart will break worse if I let him marry her and she destroys him from the inside," I replied. "At least this way, the truth comes out before she can do any more damage." Marcus Chun, the insurance appraiser, was there disguised as a guest, sitting in the back row with a small camera in his pocket. James Morrison sat near the front, a digital recorder hidden in his jacket. Marcus Thompson, the private investigator, was positioned near the entrance with additional cameras. Everything was being documented from multiple angles. The ceremony began at 4 p.m. The string quartet played Pachelbel's canon. The bridesmaids walked down the aisle in their coral-colored dresses. And then Amanda appeared at the back of the garden, and I heard the collective gasp from the guests. She looked like a princess in her white gown, her blonde hair swept up in an elegant style with small white roses woven through it. Her makeup was perfect, her smile radiant. And around her neck, catching the afternoon light with every step, was my grandmother's stolen diamond and sapphire necklace, the 128-year-old heirloom that represented 5 generations of Hayes women. I heard several guests whispering about it. "That's the most beautiful necklace I've ever seen. It must be a family heirloom. I wonder which side of the family it's from. Probably the Hayes family. They've always had money. If only they knew." Daniel stood at the altar looking handsome in his tuxedo, his eyes wet with what he thought were happy tears. He had no idea that in less than 2 hours his entire world would shatter. They said their vows. Daniel's voice was strong and clear. "I promised to love you, to honor you, to cherish you for all the days of my life." Amanda's voice was soft and sweet. "I promised to be faithful to you, to stand by you in good times and bad, to build a life together based on trust and honesty." Trust and honesty. The lies flowed from her mouth as easily as water. The pastor pronounced them husband and wife. They kissed. Everyone applauded. And I sat there with a smile on my face, waiting, counting down the minutes until justice would be served. The reception began with cocktails in the garden. I made my rounds, greeting guests, accepting congratulations, playing my role perfectly. Amanda's mother Barbara cornered me near the bar. Already 3 glasses of wine into the evening. "Margaret, I have to say you've been so gracious through all of this. I know some mothers have trouble with their sons getting married, worried about losing them to another woman. But you've been wonderful. Amanda told me you two are like best friends now." "Best friends." I smiled and sipped my champagne. "Barbara, I just want Daniel to be happy. That's all any mother wants. And that necklace Amanda's wearing. It's absolutely gorgeous. She told me she found it at an antique shop, but between you and me, I think Daniel must have bought it for her. It looks so expensive. My daughter always did have expensive taste." She laughed as if this was charming, as if being a greedy materialistic thief was an endearing character trait. At exactly 6:30 as planned, the wedding coordinator announced that dinner was about to be served and requested that everyone take their seats in the ballroom. The room looked magical with candles and white roses on every table, soft lighting creating a romantic atmosphere. I sat at the family table near the front, with Linda on one side and James on the other. Daniel and Amanda sat at the head table looking radiant, feeding each other bites of salad and laughing at private jokes. After the meal, the toasts began. Daniel's best friend Rob gave a funny speech about their college days, about how Daniel had always said he'd never get married because he was married to his work, and how amazed everyone was that Amanda had changed his mind. Amanda's sister Brittany gave a tearful toast about growing up together, about how Amanda had always dreamed of her perfect wedding day, about how she deserved all the happiness in the world. The DJ called for a toast from the mother of the groom. And then the coordinator handed me the microphone. "And now, the mother of the groom would like to say a few words. I stood up slowly, smoothing my dress, feeling the weight of 200 pairs of eyes on me. This was it. The moment I had been planning for 2 weeks. The moment when the truth would finally come out. I walked to the center of the room. Daniel smiled encouragingly, raising his glass to me. Amanda was glowing, one hand unconsciously touching the stolen necklace at her throat, probably thinking about how soon she would have access to the rest of the Hayes family assets. I took a breath and began. Thank you all for being here to celebrate Daniel and Amanda's wedding day. As most of you know, my husband Henry passed away 10 months ago. He was a wonderful man, a devoted father, and my partner for 47 years. It breaks my heart that he couldn't be here today to see our son get married. I paused, my voice genuinely emotional. Several guests were already dabbing at their eyes. I saw Amanda smile, probably thinking I was giving a sweet, sentimental speech that would make everyone love her even more. Henry came from a family that valued tradition and legacy. His grandfather, Henry Sr., gave his bride a very special wedding gift in 1892. A diamond and sapphire necklace that had been custom-made by a jeweler in Boston. 47 diamonds representing each year of love they would share. 3 sapphires representing faith, hope, and love. That necklace has been passed down through 5 generations of Hayes women. Each bride wore it on her wedding day as a symbol of enduring love and family commitment. I saw Amanda's hand freeze on the necklace. Her smile became fixed, uncertain. When Henry gave me that necklace on our 25th anniversary, he had the engraving updated to include my name, but he kept the original date, 1892, to honor its history. He told me, "Margaret, this necklace represents everything our family believes in. Loyalty, honesty, love that lasts beyond a lifetime. One day it will belong to Daniel's wife, and she will pass it to her daughter, and the legacy will continue." The room was completely silent now. Daniel was starting to look confused, probably wondering why I was talking about the necklace in such detail. Amanda had gone pale, her hand now gripping the necklace tightly. I had always planned to present that necklace to Daniel's bride on their wedding day. To welcome her into our family with this tangible piece of history. To pass on the legacy that means so much to us. I had it cleaned and appraised. I had it insured for $182,000. I kept it in my safe, waiting for this day. I turned to look directly at Amanda. Her eyes were wide, panicked. Imagine my surprise when, 2 weeks ago, I went to take the necklace out of my safe and discovered it was gone. Imagine my shock when I saw that very necklace, my family's 128-year-old heirloom, being worn by my son's fiancée and claimed on social media to have been purchased at an antique shop for $500. The gasps that rippled through the room sounded like a wave crashing. Several guests stood up. Amanda shot to her feet, her face now bright red, her voice high and panicked. "I don't know what you're talking about. This necklace is mine. I bought it fair and square." I pulled out my phone and held it up, projecting her Instagram post onto the screen behind me. The venue's AV team had set this up earlier at my request. Really, Amanda? Or should I say, Amanda Jean Kowalski? Because according to the private investigator I hired, that's your real name. Not Amanda Warren from Portland. Amanda Kowalski from Cleveland. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Amanda's family looked confused. Her mother stood up. "What is she talking about? Amanda, what is going on?" "I have the original bill of sale from 1892, I continued, my voice strong and clear. "I have photographs of me wearing this exact necklace at my anniversary party 2 years ago, which 47 people in this room attended, and can verify. I have the insurance documentation with laser-etched identification numbers on each diamond. And I have screenshots of your Instagram posts claiming you bought it at an antique shop the day after it was stolen from my home. A home you had access to. A safe you had the code to." I turned to the crowd. "I also have documentation that Amanda has been married twice before to wealthy men, both marriages ending when she was caught stealing from them. I have proof that she targeted my son deliberately, that she researched our family after my husband died, that she staged their first meeting at a coffee shop, that everything about this relationship has been a calculated con from the very beginning." Daniel shot to his feet, looking between us in absolute horror. "Amanda, tell me she's lying. Tell me this is some kind of misunderstanding." "She's crazy," Amanda shrieked, tears streaming down her face. "She's lying. She's trying to ruin our wedding because she never wanted us to get married. She's a bitter old woman who can't stand to see her son happy." I remained perfectly calm. "Marcus Chun, would you please stand up?" Marcus Chun rose from his seat in the back and walked forward, pulling out his credentials. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Marcus Chun, a certified jewelry appraiser with the Pacific Insurance Group. Mrs. Hayes reported the theft of this necklace 2 weeks ago with a full insurance claim, including photographs and documentation. I've been observing the necklace throughout today's ceremony, and I can confirm with absolute certainty that the necklace Ms. Kowalski is wearing is the stolen Hayes family property." He pulled out a small jeweler's loupe with UV light capability from his pocket. "This is specialized equipment that can verify the laser-etched identification numbers placed on each diamond by Mrs. Hayes' insurance company 15 years ago. Those numbers are invisible to the naked eye, but show up clearly under UV light. With your permission, I'd like to examine the necklace Ms. Kowalski is wearing right now." Amanda backed away from him, her hands protectively covering the necklace, her eyes wild. "No, this is mine. You can't have it. This is insane." "Marcus Thompson, would you please present your findings?" I said calmly. The private investigator stood up from his position near the entrance, holding a thick folder. "I'm Marcus Thompson, licensed private investigator. I was hired by Mrs. Hayes 2 weeks ago to conduct a background check on Amanda Jean Kowalski. What I found was a pattern of fraud, theft, and manipulation spanning nearly 6 years in 3 states." He opened the folder and pulled out documents. Amanda Kowalski, age 28, originally from Cleveland, Ohio. Married in 2018 to Robert Mitchell, wealthy businessman, age 52. Marriage lasted 6 months before Mr. Mitchell discovered Amanda had taken out 5 credit cards in his name without his knowledge and accumulated $67,000 in debt. "Marriage annulled," gasps from the crowd. Amanda's family looked shocked. Married again in 2020 to Gregory Foster, real estate developer, age 47. Marriage lasted 8 months before Mr. Foster caught Amanda attempting to forge his signature on property transfer documents. Charges were filed but later dropped when Amanda agreed to leave the state and never contact him again. Daniel's face had gone from confusion to devastation to rage. He stared at Amanda as if seeing her for the first time. "Both Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Foster have provided statements and are willing to testify if necessary," Marcus Thompson continued. "The pattern is consistent. Ms. Kowalski targets recently widowed men or their adult children through social media research. She stages accidental meetings, manipulates her way into relationships, and then systematically steals assets, forges documents, and disappears when caught." Amanda was crying now, mascara running down her face, but her tears had no effect. The truth was out. "Marcus Chun, if you would?" I gestured to the insurance appraiser. 2 security guards who had been alerted by the venue staff moved toward the head table. Daniel stepped away from Amanda as if she were radioactive. "Amanda, if it's really yours like you claim, why won't you let him examine it? Why won't you prove it's not the stolen Hayes necklace?" His voice was broken, devastated. "Because this is insane. Your mother is crazy. She's destroying our wedding." "No," Daniel said quietly, and something in his voice had changed. The love was gone. The trust was shattered. "If you really bought this at an antique shop, you'd have a receipt. You'd remember the name of the shop. You'd be able to prove it." Amanda tried to run. In her wedding gown and heels, she only made it 3 steps before one of the security guards gently but firmly took her arm. She struggled, screaming, "Let me go. This is assault. I'm calling my lawyer." Marcus Chun stepped forward and, with gloved hands, carefully removed the necklace from Amanda's neck while she sobbed and cursed. He examined it under his jeweler's loupe with UV light, then held it up for the crowd to see. The laser-etched identification numbers are clearly visible under UV light. Number H47892M, H on the largest center diamond. Numbers matching on each of the surrounding stones. This is absolutely, without any doubt, the Hayes family heirloom reported stolen 2 weeks ago. This necklace is valued at $182,000 and is the legal property of Margaret Hayes. The room erupted in chaos. Guests were shouting. Cameras were flashing from phones. Amanda was screaming accusations at me, at Daniel, at anyone who would listen. Amanda's family was crying and yelling at each other. Daniel stood frozen in the center of it all, his wedding day destroyed, his marriage revealed as a fraud before it could even truly begin. The police arrived within 15 minutes. I had called them before the reception, asking them to stand by nearby in case they were needed. 2 officers took statements from me, from Marcus Chun, from Marcus Thompson, from James Morrison, from the security guards. They photographed the necklace from every angle. They documented the laser-etched numbers. They reviewed the social media posts. They read Amanda her Miranda rights. Amanda Jean Kowalski, you are under arrest for felony grand theft, possession of stolen property over $100,000, insurance fraud, and identity theft. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. As they led her out in handcuffs, still wearing her wedding gown, mascara-stained face twisted in rage and fear, she looked back at me with pure hatred burning in her eyes. You ruined my life. You destroyed everything. I loved Daniel. This was supposed to be my happy ending. I met her eyes calmly, feeling no guilt, no sympathy, only a cold satisfaction that justice was being served. No, Amanda. You did that yourself the moment you decided to steal from the family you were pretending to join. You destroyed Daniel's trust. You destroyed any chance you had at a real life. You targeted my son when he was vulnerable and grieving. You manipulated him. You stole from me, and you lied about all of it. And you did it all for a necklace you could never truly own, for money you didn't earn, for a life you didn't deserve. The officers led her away. The reception ended in chaos. Guests filed out in shocked silence, clusters of people whispering and staring. Many of them stopped to hug me, to tell me how sorry they were, to say I had done the right thing. Amanda's family left without a word to anyone, her mother sobbing, her father looking furious and humiliated, her sister Brittany staring at me with something between horror and grudging respect. Daniel sat at the head table long after everyone else had gone, still in his tuxedo, surrounded by untouched wedding cake and wilting roses, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I sat down beside him and put my hand on his shoulder. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, I finally said. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. I'm sorry your wedding day ended like this. His voice was broken when he finally spoke, barely above a whisper. How long have you known? 2 weeks. Since I discovered the necklace was missing. Why didn't you tell me right away? Why did you wait? I chose my words carefully, because this answer mattered more than anything. Because I needed to be absolutely certain. Because I wanted to protect you from making the biggest mistake of your life. And because if I had told you in private, she would have lied. She would have manipulated you. She would have convinced you I was the villain, that I was trying to control you, that I couldn't let you go. This way there's no doubt. There's no ambiguity. There's no way for her to talk her way out of what she did. Daniel lifted his head and looked at me. His eyes were red and swollen, his face a mask of devastation and betrayal. I was going to spend my life with her. I was going to have children with her. I was going to give her everything. His voice cracked. I loved her, Mom. I really loved her. I pulled him into my arms the way I had when he was a little boy with scraped knees or hurt feelings, when the world seemed too big and too cruel. I know, baby. I know. And it's going to hurt for a long time. But what you loved wasn't real. She created a character, a role she played perfectly. You fell in love with the person she pretended to be, not the person she actually is. And none of that is your fault. But I should have seen it. I should have known something was wrong. Dad would have known. Dad always could read people. Tears were streaming down his face. I'm not like him. I'm not smart enough to see when someone's lying to my face. Daniel, look at me. I took his face in my hands. Your father was fooled by people many times in his life. So was I. So is everyone at some point. Amanda is a professional con artist. She's been doing this for years. She studied us, researched us, targeted you specifically when you were at your most vulnerable. The fact that you trusted her doesn't make you stupid. It makes you human. It makes you someone with a good heart who believes the best in people. Don't let her take that away from you. We sat there together in the empty ballroom, surrounded by white roses and flickering candles and the ruins of what should have been his happiest day. The DJ had packed up his equipment. The caterers were clearing tables. The fairy lights still twinkled overhead, indifferent to the drama that had unfolded beneath them. "What happens now?" Daniel asked finally. "Now. Now you heal. Now you rebuild. Now you remember who you really are, not who she made you think you should be. And now we make sure she faces every consequence for what she did." In the weeks that followed, the story went viral. Bride arrested at wedding for stealing heirloom made headlines across the country and even internationally. My phone didn't stop ringing with interview requests from morning shows, podcasts, documentary filmmakers. I declined them all. This wasn't about fame or attention. This was about justice, about protecting my family, about sending a message that some people shouldn't be trifled with. Amanda was charged with multiple felonies across 3 states as investigators discovered the full extent of her crimes. Her lawyer tried desperately to negotiate a plea deal, suggesting that perhaps Amanda had psychological issues that made her not fully responsible for her actions, that she was a victim of some sort of compulsion disorder. I refused to drop any charges. She had stolen from me, lied about it, flaunted it publicly, manipulated my grieving son, and showed absolutely no remorse until she was caught. At her preliminary hearing 6 weeks later, I sat in the courtroom wearing the same purple dress I had worn to the wedding. The evidence was overwhelming. The Instagram posts with timestamps. The security footage from my home showing her accessing my bedroom and safe, lingering for exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds before leaving with something concealed under her jacket. Marcus Chen's authentication testimony. The laser-etched identification numbers on each diamond that matched my insurance records perfectly. Her own statements claiming she had bought the necklace at an antique shop. A story that fell apart completely when investigators couldn't find any such shop within 200 miles of the city, and she couldn't produce a receipt, couldn't remember the shop's name, couldn't describe the owner, couldn't provide any detail that would verify her story. Marcus Thompson's investigation revealing her true identity and pattern of targeting wealthy men. Testimony from her 2 previous victims, Robert Mitchell and Gregory Foster, who flew in to tell their stories of how Amanda had deceived them, stolen from them, and disappeared when confronted. The prosecutor, a sharp woman in her 40s named Catherine Mills, presented the case methodically. "Your Honor, Ms. Kowalski is a serial predator who targets vulnerable people, infiltrates their families through deception, and systematically steals their assets. This is not a one-time mistake. This is a calculated pattern of criminal behavior spanning multiple years and multiple states." The defendant researched the Hayes family after Mr. Henry Hayes's death, identified Daniel Hayes as a target due to his emotional vulnerability and financial stability, staged their first meeting to appear coincidental, and spent 8 months manipulating her way into the family with the specific goal of accessing their assets. Amanda's lawyer, a nervous young man named Todd Brennan, who clearly was in over his head, tried to paint her as a troubled woman who made mistakes but deserved compassion. "Your Honor, my client acknowledges that she made poor decisions. She was raised in poverty, struggled with feelings of inadequacy, and made choices she now regrets. But she's not the monster the prosecution is making her out to be. She genuinely cared for Mr. Hayes. Yes, she took the necklace, but it was an impulsive decision, not a premeditated crime." Catherine Mills stood up immediately. "Impulsive?" The defendant accessed Mrs. Hayes's home, knew the safe combination, waited until she was alone in the house, took the necklace, and then posted photos of herself wearing it on social media with a fabricated story about buying it at an antique shop. That is not impulse. That is premeditation, execution, and deliberate cover-up. The judge, a stern-looking woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Weaver, reviewed the evidence carefully. After 2 hours of testimony, she rendered her decision. "Ms. Kowalski, I've presided over many theft cases in my 30 years on the bench, but few have demonstrated the level of calculated manipulation present in this case. You didn't just steal an object. You infiltrated a grieving family, exploited their trust, targeted a vulnerable young man, and then had the audacity to wear the stolen property publicly while lying about its origins. Your pattern of behavior across multiple states suggests you are a career criminal who has no intention of changing. Therefore, I am binding you over for trial on all charges. Bail is set at $500,000. Amanda couldn't make bail. She sat in county jail for the next 4 months awaiting trial. During that time, more victims came forward. A man from Phoenix who she had dated briefly, and whose credit cards had been maxed out. A woman from Seattle whose jewelry had disappeared after Amanda stayed at her home as an Airbnb guest. A family from Denver whose elderly mother had befriended Amanda and then discovered $15,000 missing from her bank account. The pattern was undeniable. Amanda Jean Kowalski was a professional con artist, and I had stopped her before she could completely destroy my son's life. Daniel moved back in with me during this period. He had quit his job at the architecture firm, unable to face his colleagues after the wedding disaster became public. He spent his days in his childhood bedroom, alternating between anger and depression, sometimes crying, sometimes staring at the wall for hours. "I keep thinking about all the signs I missed," he told me one evening as we sat on the back porch watching the sunset. "The way she always wanted to know about Dad's estate. The way she asked so many questions about family assets. The way she pushed for a quick wedding. I thought it was because she loved me so much she couldn't wait. Now I realize she was just trying to get legal access to the money as fast as possible." Daniel, you can't torture yourself with hindsight. She was very, very good at what she did. She fooled a lot of people, not just you. But you saw through her. From the beginning, you knew something was wrong. I sighed. I had suspicions. Instincts. But I didn't know for certain until she stole the necklace. And even then I could have been wrong. That's why I waited, why I gathered evidence. I needed to be absolutely sure before I destroyed your wedding day. He was quiet for a long time, then said, "Thank you. For saving me. For protecting me even when it hurt. I know that must have been so hard. Watching me plan a wedding to someone you knew was lying to me, knowing you were going to have to destroy everything in front of 200 people. It was the hardest thing I've ever done," I admitted. "Harder than losing your father, in some ways. Because with Henry, I couldn't prevent his death. But with Amanda, I could prevent her from destroying you. I just had to wait for the right moment." 3 months after the wedding, Amanda's trial began. The courtroom was packed with journalists, curious onlookers, and some of the wedding guests who wanted to see how the story ended. I sat in the front row every single day, wearing simple, elegant clothes, my mother's pearls, and a calm expression. I wanted Amanda to see me. I wanted her to know that I wasn't going away, that I would see this through to the end. The prosecution's case was devastating. Catherine Mills methodically presented every piece of evidence, every witness, every document. The security footage of Amanda in my bedroom, her hand reaching into the safe, the bulge under her jacket as she left. The Instagram posts with timestamps proving she wore the necklace within 24 hours of stealing it. Marcus Chen's expert testimony about the laser-etched identification numbers that proved beyond any doubt this was the Hayes family heirloom. Marcus Thompson's investigation revealing Amanda's true identity and criminal history. Testimony from Robert Mitchell, who described how Amanda had stolen his identity and maxed out credit cards in his name, leaving him with $67,000 in debt and a ruined credit score. Testimony from Gregory Foster, who described discovering Amanda in his office at 2 a.m. trying to scan property deeds into her laptop, clearly planning to forge his signature. A forensic accountant who had analyzed Amanda's finances and discovered she had no legitimate source of income but had somehow maintained an expensive lifestyle for years, strong evidence of ongoing fraud. A psychologist who testified about Amanda's pattern of behavior, describing her as someone with antisocial personality disorder who lacked empathy, felt entitled to other people's assets, and showed no genuine remorse for her actions. Daniel testified, his voice breaking as he described how Amanda had pursued him, how she had seemed so interested in his grief over losing his father, how she had encouraged him to talk about his inheritance and family assets, how she had pushed for a quick wedding. "She told me she wanted to get married fast because she couldn't wait to start our life together," he said, tears streaming down his face. "She said every day we weren't married was a day wasted. I thought it was romantic. Now I realize she was just trying to get legal access to my family's money as quickly as possible." Amanda's defense was weak. Todd Brennan tried to paint her as a damaged woman who had made mistakes but wasn't really a bad person. He called character witnesses who had known Amanda briefly and thought she was nice. He tried to suggest that maybe she really had bought a similar necklace at an antique shop, and this was all a terrible misunderstanding. But when Catherine Mills cross-examined these witnesses, they all admitted they had only known Amanda for a few months, that they knew nothing about her past, and that they had no evidence whatsoever to support her story about buying the necklace. The prosecution's closing argument was powerful. Catherine Mills stood before the jury, holding the necklace in its evidence bag, and spoke with quiet intensity. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about more than a stolen necklace. It's about trust. It's about family. It's about a predator who targets vulnerable people and destroys their lives for financial gain. Amanda Kowalski didn't just steal an object worth $182,000. She stole Daniel Hayes's faith in love. She stole Margaret Hayes's sense of security in her own home. She stole the joy that should have surrounded a wedding day and turned it into a nightmare. And she did all of this deliberately, calculatedly, with no remorse whatsoever." She walked toward the jury box. "The evidence in this case is overwhelming. Security footage shows the defendant stealing the necklace. Social media posts show her wearing it and lying about its origins. Expert testimony proves beyond any scientific doubt that this is the Hayes family heirloom. And a pattern of similar behavior across multiple states proves this is not a one-time mistake, but a career of criminal activity. The defense wants you to believe Ms. Kowalski is a troubled woman who made poor choices. But the evidence shows she is a calculating predator who researched her victims, planned her crimes, executed them flawlessly, and felt no remorse until she was caught. She wore that stolen necklace to her wedding, looked Margaret Hayes in the eye, and lied without hesitation. That is not a troubled person making mistakes. That is a criminal who believes she's above the law. I ask you to find Amanda Kowalski guilty of all charges. Not for revenge, not for punishment, but for justice. For the Hayes family who trusted her and were betrayed. For the previous victims who suffered at her hands. And for the future victims she will target if she's allowed to continue this pattern of behavior." The jury deliberated for only 3 hours. When they returned, the foreperson stood and read the verdict in a clear, firm voice. "On the count of grand theft, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of possession of stolen property over $100,000, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of insurance fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of identity theft, we find the defendant guilty." Amanda collapsed in her chair, sobbing. Her mother, who had attended every day of the trial, cried out. But I sat perfectly still, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Justice had been served. At sentencing 2 weeks later, Judge Weaver looked down at Amanda with no sympathy in her eyes. "Ms. Kowalski, you are a danger to society. Your crimes are not crimes of passion or desperation. They are calculated, premeditated acts of manipulation and theft. You have shown no genuine remorse, only anger at being caught. You have destroyed multiple lives, damaged multiple families, and shown every indication that you would continue this behavior if given the opportunity. Therefore, I sentence you to 8 years in state prison on the theft and fraud charges, to run consecutively with charges filed in Ohio and Arizona. You will also be required to pay restitution of $250,000 to your various victims, including $182,000 to Mrs. Margaret Hayes for the value of the stolen necklace, plus damages for emotional distress." 8 years. Amanda would be 36 when she was released. Her 30s, the prime years of her life, would be spent in prison. She screamed as the bailiffs led her away. "This isn't fair. I didn't do anything that bad. People steal things every day. Why am I being punished so harshly?" Judge Weaver's voice was ice cold. "Because you didn't just steal things, Ms. Kowalski. You stole people's trust, their sense of safety, their belief in love and family. And those things are worth far more than money. The necklace was returned to me at a small ceremony at the courthouse. I held it in my hands and felt Henry's presence, as if he were standing beside me, proud that I had fought to protect our family legacy." Daniel and I drove home in silence. When we pulled into the driveway, he finally spoke. "It's over. It's really over." "Yes," I said. "It's over. Now you can start to heal." But healing took time. Daniel struggled for months with trust issues, with anger, with feelings of humiliation that he had been so thoroughly fooled. He went to therapy twice a week. He reconnected with old friends who had stood by him through the scandal. He slowly began to rebuild his life. 6 months after the trial, he started dating again. Nothing serious, just casual coffee dates and dinners, relearning how to trust his own judgment about people. He moved out of my house and into a small apartment downtown, a fresh start in a space that held no memories of Amanda. And then, almost a year after the disastrous wedding, he met someone. Her name was Rachel, and she was nothing like Amanda. She was a kindergarten teacher who drove a 15-year-old Honda Civic and bought her clothes at Target and spent her weekends volunteering at an animal shelter. She had student loans she was slowly paying off. She lived in a tiny studio apartment with 2 rescue cats. She had no interest in luxury brands or expensive restaurants or designer anything. When Daniel brought her to meet me, she brought homemade banana bread and asked to see photos of Henry, not because she wanted to know about his estate, but because she wanted to understand the man who had shaped the family she was getting to know. "Mrs. Hayes," she said, looking at a photograph of Henry in his workshop building a birdhouse. "Daniel talks about his father constantly. He says you two had the kind of love people write songs about. That must have been so special." I liked her immediately. There was no calculation in her eyes, no assessment of my home's value, no questions about assets or inheritance. She simply wanted to know us as people. Over dinner, she told us about her students, about the challenges of teaching during a pandemic, about her dreams of eventually opening a school for at-risk kids. She asked about my career as a family lawyer, genuinely interested in the stories I told about difficult cases and satisfying victories. She asked Daniel about his architecture work with real enthusiasm, not the fake interest Amanda had always shown. When they left that evening, Daniel hugged me tight at the door. "So, what do you think?" I think," I said carefully, "that she's genuine. She sees you as a person, not as an opportunity. She asked about your life, your work, your interests, not about your bank account or your assets. That's how you know Daniel. Real love is interested in who you are, not what you have." Tears filled his eyes. I was so scared to bring her here. So scared you wouldn't approve after everything that happened with Amanda. "Daniel, I will always look carefully at anyone you bring into your life. That's not going to change. But Rachel is nothing like Amanda. I can see that already. Just take your time. Don't rush. Let the relationship develop naturally. You'll know when it's right." 18 months after the disastrous wedding, Daniel and Rachel got engaged. This time it was slow and thoughtful. They had dated for a year, lived together for 6 months, talked about everything from finances to children to what they wanted their life to look like. The proposal was simple and perfect. Daniel took Rachel to the botanical gardens where they'd had their first date, got down on one knee by a fountain, and offered her his grandmother's simple gold ring, the one Henry's mother had worn, not expensive or flashy, just meaningful. Rachel cried and said yes. When they came to tell me, Rachel hugged me and said, "Mrs. Hayes, I know what happened before and I know this must be scary for you. I want you to know that I love Daniel for exactly who he is. I don't want anything from your family except to be part of it, if you'll have me." "Rachel," I said, taking her hands in mine, "I've watched you with my son for over a year now. I've seen how you support him, challenge him, make him laugh, help him heal from what Amanda did. You've never once asked about money or inheritance or assets. You've never tried to rush him into anything. You've been patient and kind and real. That's all I've ever wanted for Daniel. Someone who loves him genuinely." The wedding was planned for the following spring. Small and intimate, just 60 people in a garden venue. No expensive ballroom, no elaborate flowers, no designer gown. Rachel wore a simple white dress she found at a bridal shop for $800. Daniel wore the same suit he wore to work every day. It was perfect. 2 weeks before the wedding, I went to my safe and took out the velvet box. I held it for a long moment, feeling the weight of 130 years of history, thinking about all the Hayes women who had worn this necklace before me. My grandmother-in-law in 1892, Henry's mother in 1920, Henry's grandmother in 1946, me in 1976, and now if Rachel would accept it, it would be hers. I called Rachel and asked her to come over alone. When she arrived, I invited her into my study and gestured for her to sit down. "Rachel, I want to talk to you about something important. About the necklace." Her face went pale. "Mrs. Hayes, I know about what happened. Daniel told me everything. I don't expect, I would never. I don't need any family heirloom. Please don't feel pressured. I smiled and opened the velvet box. The diamonds caught the afternoon light streaming through the window, sparkling with all the fire and brilliance they'd had for 130 years. Rachel gasped. "It's beautiful." "It's more than beautiful," I said quietly. "It's a legacy. 5 generations of Hayes women have worn this necklace on their wedding day. It represents love, loyalty, family, everything we hold sacred. And I want you to wear it at your wedding, if you'll accept it." Tears filled Rachel's eyes. "Mrs. Hayes, I can't. After everything that happened with Amanda, after she stole it and lied about it, this necklace must hold such painful memories for you. I couldn't bear to wear it." "Rachel, this necklace holds 130 years of love. One woman's betrayal doesn't erase all of that history. Yes, Amanda stole it. Yes, she wore it under false pretenses. But I got it back. I protected it. And now I want to pass it to you, not because you're entitled to it, but because you've earned the right to wear it. You've loved my son genuinely. You've been patient with his healing. You've never asked for anything except to be part of our family. That's what this necklace represents. Real love, not fake love. Real family, not fake family." Rachel was crying now, and so was I. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "I'm absolutely certain. Henry would have loved you, Rachel. He would have seen in you exactly what I see. A genuine, kind, honest woman who loves our son for who he is. Please, wear it with pride. Wear it knowing you earned it, not through manipulation or theft, but through being exactly who you are." The wedding day was beautiful. Sunny and warm, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of spring flowers. I sat in the front row wearing a soft blue dress, watching as Rachel walked down the aisle. She looked radiant in her simple dress and natural makeup, her smile genuine and full of joy. And around her neck, catching the sunlight, was the diamond and sapphire necklace. Daniel saw it and his eyes filled with tears. He had known I planned to offer it to Rachel, but seeing it there, seeing this symbol of family legacy being worn by someone who truly deserved it, overwhelmed him. Their vows were simple and heartfelt. No elaborate speeches, just honest promises to love each other, support each other, build a life together based on trust and honesty and genuine partnership. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the small gathering of friends and family erupted in applause. After the ceremony, several of the older guests came up to me, people who had been at the disastrous first wedding, who had witnessed Amanda's arrest. "Margaret," one of them said quietly, "this is how it should have been all along." Looking at them, looking at Rachel wearing that necklace honestly and proudly, this is what Daniel deserved from the beginning. "Yes," I agreed, watching my son and his new wife pose for photographs, both of them laughing, clearly so happy, so right together. This is exactly what he deserved. At the reception, Daniel asked me to dance. As we swayed to an old song that Henry and I used to love, he said, "Mom, I need to tell you something. For a long time, I was angry at you for how you handled the Amanda situation. Angry that you waited, that you exposed everything so publicly, that you destroyed my wedding day in front of everyone." My heart clenched, but I said nothing, letting him continue. "But now I understand. You didn't just save me from a bad marriage. You saved me from years, maybe decades, of manipulation and theft and lies. If you had told me privately, Amanda would have convinced me you were wrong. She was that good at lying. But you made sure there was no doubt, no room for her to manipulate her way out of it. You made sure everyone saw the truth. And because of that, I was able to heal completely. I was able to learn what real love looks like. I was able to find Rachel." He hugged me tight. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you for being strong enough to do what needed to be done, even when it hurt, even when it made you look cruel to some people. You saved my life." I held my son and cried, feeling Henry's presence around us, knowing he would be so proud of the man Daniel had become, the woman he had chosen, the life they were building together. 2 years later, Rachel gave birth to a baby girl. They named her Margaret Rose Hayes, after me and after Henry's mother Rose. When I held my granddaughter for the first time, I thought about legacy, about what we passed down through generations. Not just necklaces and money and physical things, but values. Integrity. Strength. The willingness to fight for what's right even when it's hard. The ability to recognize real love from fake love, real family from fake family. "Grandma," Daniel said, standing beside me with his arm around Rachel, "we want you to know that when little Maggie grows up and gets married someday, we're going to pass the necklace to her. We're going to tell her the whole story. About Great-Grandma Rose who wore it first, about you and Grandpa Henry, about the woman who tried to steal it, and about how you fought to protect it and everything it represents. We want her to understand that some things are worth fighting for. I looked down at baby Margaret Rose, her tiny fingers wrapped around my thumb, her eyes just beginning to focus on my face. That's perfect, I whispered. Because she needs to know that legacy isn't just about things. It's about standing up for what's right. It's about protecting the people you love. It's about recognizing truth from lies. Those are the real heirlooms we pass down. 3 years after Amanda's arrest, I received a letter from her. She had been transferred to a different prison in another state, serving out her 8-year sentence. The envelope had been opened and inspected by prison officials, as all inmate mail was. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. The letter was handwritten on cheap lined paper. Mrs. Hayes, I know you probably hate me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I've been in therapy here in prison for 2 years, and I'm finally starting to understand what I did and why. I was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic traits. That doesn't excuse what I did, but it helps explain it. For years, I saw people as resources, not as human beings. I saw Daniel as an opportunity, not as a person. I saw your necklace as an object to take, not as a family legacy with meaning. I genuinely thought I was entitled to these things, that I was smarter than everyone else, that the rules didn't apply to me. But sitting in here for 3 years, missing my 20s, watching my life pass by through prison bars, I've had a lot of time to think. I've had to face what I really am. A thief. A liar. A manipulator. Someone who destroyed lives for money. I'm writing to tell you I'm sorry. Not because I think you'll forgive me or because I want anything from you. I know I'll never get out of here and have a normal life. I know Daniel married someone else. I know I destroyed any chance I ever had at real happiness. But I wanted you to know that what you did at the wedding, as humiliating as it was, as much as I hated you for it at the time, probably saved my life. If you had let me marry Daniel, I would have eventually stolen everything I could and moved on to the next victim. I would have kept doing it until I destroyed someone's life completely, or until I got caught in an even worse situation. You stopped me. You held me accountable. You made sure I faced real consequences. I'll be 36 when I get out of here. I'll have spent 8 years in prison, 8 years to think about who I want to be when I'm released. Whether I can be someone different, someone better, someone who sees people as human beings rather than opportunities. I don't know if I can change, but at least now I have the chance to try. Thank you for stopping me before I did something even worse. Thank you for protecting your son. And I'm truly sorry for what I did to your family. Amanda. I read the letter 3 times, trying to discern if it was genuine or just another manipulation. In the end, I decided it didn't matter. Amanda's redemption, or lack thereof, was not my responsibility. I had done what I needed to do. I had protected my family. I had recovered what was stolen. I had made sure justice was served. What Amanda did with her time in prison, whether she changed or stayed the same, was up to her. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a file with all the other documents from the case. The police reports, the court transcripts, the news articles. Someday, when little Maggie was old enough to understand, I would show her everything. I would tell her the whole story. Not to scare her, but to teach her. To help her understand that sometimes the people who seem the most charming are the most dangerous. That real love never asks you to compromise your integrity or give up your assets without question. That family is about more than blood. It's about loyalty and honesty and standing up for each other when times get hard. 5 years after the disastrous wedding, I attended Daniel and Rachel's 5th anniversary party. They had bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Daniel had been promoted to senior architect at his firm. Rachel was now the principal of an elementary school. And little Maggie was 3 years old, running around the backyard with the energy only a toddler can have. I watched Rachel and Daniel together, the easy affection between them, the way they communicated without words, the genuine partnership they had built. This was what Henry and I had. This was what I had fought so hard to protect for my son. Later that evening, as the sun was setting and the party was winding down, Daniel came to sit beside me on the back porch. "Mom, I heard that Amanda was released on parole last month. Did you know?" "I heard," I said. She served 5 years of her 8-year sentence. Good behavior, apparently. Do you ever worry she'll come back? Try to cause problems? I shook my head. No. She knows if she comes anywhere near our family, she'll violate parole and go straight back to prison. And honestly, I think she's too smart for that. She'll move to a different state, change her name again, try to start over. Whether she's learned anything, or whether she'll go back to her old ways, that's not our problem anymore. Daniel was quiet for a moment, then said, I ran into someone from the wedding last week. One of Amanda's bridesmaids. She told me Amanda's been posting on social media from some small town in Montana, working as a waitress, keeping a low profile. She looks different. Darker hair, simpler style. Maybe she really is trying to change. Maybe, I said. I hope so, for her sake and for the sake of anyone she might target in the future. But Daniel, that's not our story anymore. Our story is this. I gestured to the backyard where Rachel was pushing little Maggie on a swing, both of them laughing, so happy, so safe. This is what we fought for. This is what we protected. And it was worth every difficult moment. Daniel put his arm around my shoulders. It was worth everything. You know, Rachel and I talk about you all the time. About how you taught us what real strength looks like. Not aggressive strength or angry strength, but the strength to wait for the right moment, to gather evidence, to act decisively when needed. That's what we want to teach Maggie as she grows up. I looked at my granddaughter, this beautiful child who would one day wear the necklace I had fought so hard to protect, who would carry forward the legacy of 5 generations of strong Hayes women. Teach her to trust her instincts, I said. Teach her that if something feels wrong, it probably is. Teach her that real love never requires her to compromise her integrity or give up her power. Teach her that some things are worth fighting for, and family is at the top of that list. As the stars came out and the evening cooled, I sat there surrounded by my family, the real family, the family built on love and trust and honesty. The necklace was safe upstairs in Rachel and Daniel's bedroom safe. The legacy was protected. And most importantly, my son had found real happiness with a woman who deserved him. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled the situation. If I wish I had confronted Amanda privately instead of publicly. If I think humiliating her at her own wedding was too cruel. My answer is always the same. I did what needed to be done to protect my family. I gathered evidence so there could be no doubt. I exposed the truth so there could be no manipulation or lies. I made sure justice was served so she would face consequences for her actions. Was it cruel? Perhaps. Was it public? Absolutely. But it was also necessary. And I would do it exactly the same way again. Because some whispers change everything. Some secrets need to be revealed. And some women, even at 72 years old, will fight like hell to protect the people they love and the legacy they've been entrusted to guard. My name is Margaret Hayes. I'm 77 years old now. And I'm the woman who exposed a thief at her own wedding, recovered my stolen family heirloom, and saved my son from a lifetime of manipulation and lies. That's my story, and I'm not sorry for any of it. Did you like Laura's whisper? Which city are you listening from? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more life stories where justice is served and truth always finds its way to light. Remember, some necklaces are worth more than diamonds. They're worth the truth. See you in the next whisper. Crescent Moon.